Good morning everyone and welcome to the Council meeting of Thursday 26th of June 2025. In terms of health and safety, if the alarm sounds, please make your way to the nearest emergency exit and the meeting point is walk down Devonport Road towards the Strand, and if we meet away from the building. Please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and the video will be publicly available on YouTube. Members, could you please remember to speak clearly into your microphones and only one speaker at a time for clarity. Please turn off your mobile phones. I'd like to pass to Councillor Rolleston, if he could please give us a opening karakia. Thank you.
Tēnā koe mahi. I mua te karakia, he kārere no te parimata ko hinga. Te rangatira o te parimata, te mema o Tāmaki Makaura, tāku tai moana nā Tasha Kemp ko hinga. Ina nahi e noho ia I te parimata, I tēnei ata ko hinga. Nō reira e te tuahine, moi mai rā. So just passing on our utmost respects, the news coming through this morning of the Tāmaki Makaura Member of Parliament, Taku Tai Moana Natasha Kemp, who according to the news was only just sitting in Parliament yesterday and has passed away after an illness. And so the karakia we'll offer today to acknowledge her, the member of the Te Pāti Māori Party, but the member of the Government of New Zealand and our aroha at this stage. Nō reira, tēnei te mihi ki a koutou, kia noi tātou. Tui runga, tui raro, tui roto, tui waho, tui te here tangata karongo te ākarongo te pō, nau mai te ihi, te we, te mana te tapu, paupau ki roto ki a mātou mō tēnei ata, koia rā e rongo, whakiriraki ki runga, turu whakamaua ki a tīna. Haumi e, hui e, kia ora.
Kia ora, Councillor Rolleston. Looking around the table, it looks like we've got a full complement. No apologies that I'm missing. No, thank you. Today we have a few speakers in the public forum and I would like to invite Murray Guy forward first. Murray, you will have 5 minutes to speak, including time for questions. Thank you.
Really appreciate the opportunity, seriously guys. This is my first time back here for some time and it's been incredibly positive. Seriously, Hemi, great to see you, buddy. I was a councillor from 2001 to 2013 and it's amazing how many this morning that I bumped into that were staff at that time, and much respected staff I might add. So even though I might have significantly different ideology and philosophies, and that includes with Hemi from time to time, they are people whom I really respect and it's great. Behind me here we have Mike Baker somewhere. Mike's here, former councillor. Haven't seen Mike for some years as well. One of the reasons I, albeit belatedly, Your Worship, applied to speak this morning was because there were some issues around the public forum, who could speak, and I think the Mayor was a little bit uncomfortable about getting perhaps too many all speaking on the same topic again. It made me reflect when I was a councillor, and back in the day then, Rick Curack and myself, Catherine Stewart and one or two others, we did have a strong, inclusive democracy philosophy. And I don't know who came up with the concept of a public forum, but that's when it came about. So that was about 2010, I think, 2011. And it was about giving the community ownership of their space and their place. And in those days, if I was chairing a meeting, Your Worship, somebody like Jan could rock up at 8:45 and say, listen, Mr. Chairperson, I'd like to speak, if that's okay. I didn't have any valid reason to say no. So there was no requirement for an appointment or to ask permission. It was your time, every meeting. So I thought I'd just share that with you. That's how it came about. It was making people feel valued and appreciated. I remember in 2014, when the council suddenly changed and it seemed as though there was an incremental reduction in meaningful democracy. And you had to apply 3 days before for a public forum. And I asked the question why. And one of the councillors said to me, it's because we want to know what you're going to talk about. Now, the councillor failed to understand that the purpose was about him listening and if he had any questions. So that's the background to the public forum. Appreciate being here. In terms of savings and what you're about to do later today, a frustration of mine is that one of my many, is that when I walk in my backyard, I overlook an area of land that the local city council purchased, I think back in 2019. They spent, $1 million or so in the process, and they did so in the understanding that the property was at risk from flooding. Now, I've lived here, for 20 years, the property had never flooded, and I never understood why they made the decision, but they did make the decision. And then I never understood why they never sold it, Your Worship. Prior to buying the house, we were getting at the time $5,500 in rates, and immediately that became, we were spending 15 grand to mow grass. Now, I'm making the point, it's only a small point, or a small amount of money relevant to your budget, but it's about the mindset. I'm quite sure that throughout our activity areas, there are many, many examples of that, whereby we could be reducing debt, which in turn means reducing the rates. In my own case, my rates bill, I think, is around 7 grand or so. I tend not to look at it, and that's the wife's job. But it is becoming increasingly difficult. And I don't think it's appropriate for anybody, and some have said it in the past, listen, if you can't afford the rates, bugger off. Go and shift, But that's what's happening now. I'm on a very fixed income, low budget, high in asset value. So just be mindful. I don't know if you're aware of it or not. How's my up there? Tauranga, I think, has around 20% retirees. So while we may look wealthy as a city, we are in fact asset rich, income poor. 20% of us are retirees. So be really mindful of that. And really work hard at looking at these opportunities to reduce the debt, like that section down there below me. It should have been sold, it could have been sold, and there's another let's just say $1 million that's going to reduce debt, and another 15 grand that we're not going to be spending. But yeah, that's about me. I just appreciate being back and great to see you all.
Thank you very much, Murray, for your comments. Has anyone got any questions for Murray?
Rick? Think of something. No, I'll let you go. So you've got other speakers. Really appreciate it.
No,
Thanks
we really
much.
appreciate your thoughts, and I can assure you that we do want to hear from our people. I guess just to explain to you the way we look at this is if this council, and this is a rule we have around the council table, if we have information, we consider it, we make a decision, then it's time to move on. So if people want to come and tell us the same message over and over and over again, then I use my right under the standing orders to refuse that request. However, we do want to hear from people, and if people have new information, then we're absolutely open to hearing that. And so that will lead into our next presenters. If you're welcome forward, and Jan Jenga and her team. Yeah, or you want to come together?
Thanks, Steve.
So, do you want to do it combined, or you want to do it individually?
Individually. Individually, I'll speak briefly.
Okay, so we'll you'll each have 5 minutes, including question time. So.
Kia ora, Worship Mayor, ladies and gentlemen. I understand a lot of decisions have been made, but I think one always needs to reflect on decisions maturely and sensibly as responsibilities and directions change, because we all know that all projects end up blowing out significantly over time. So I had tried to get the information from council. I sent an email, 2 emails about a month ago about the debt position of our council. The mayor mentioned to me now that our current debt is about approximately $1.3 billion. Our borrowings this year is projected for these projects is projected at $485 million. So that represents a 35% increase in debt. Is that correct, Mayor? Does that make sense, those figures?
Just find
So
the
it'll be
exact
going up
numbers.
to 1.7 billion, which is $1,785 million in debt. Now, I understand also that next year and the year after, it's not going to stop. It's going to go up more and more and more. So this is a very serious situation which we're getting ourselves into. It's so serious that we cannot have our debt go up by 35% and then continue to go up by 20 and 30% every year and expect that we're being very sensible and running a fiscal, sensible control of the business. This is a business, and the income streams are the property owners. And the response and the liability, if the council doesn't pay, are the property owners. They'll sell your property. Of course, it's never happened. There are a lot of things that haven't happened. That always is the first time. But it's decisions like this which encumber the generations of the future. And you've got to ask yourselves, I think an art building is very important. But the question is from my understanding in the paper, is online, 128 million's worth of art building. Is that going to be good for the long-term generation of capital? Well, it's going to be a drag of 20 million a year to run, from my understanding, to that effect. And then we've got to, so every year we have a cost to run the building, okay? We only a city of 150,000 people. How can we justify borrowing 485 million, pushing the debt up to $1.7 billion, 1.7 billion, and then each year incrementally increasing just to cover the projects? I think projects are necessary. We all understand that. But the question is, are we not getting out of kilter? Is it irresponsible? Because there are a lot of people out there. A lot of people are saying it's too much money the council's spending. The rates are too much. Guys, we need to really look at this maturely and responsibly and carefully. For your children's sake, your family's sake, and our own sakes. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I just want to, this is page 79 of the agenda, paragraph 8. So the projected debt at the end of this financial year, as of a few days' time, is 1.38 million. And the billion. And the projected debt at the end of 25-26 is 1.648 billion. And it shows there that we're approving new debt of 485. Obviously, the difference there is some of that is being refinanced, some of that is new debt. So all that information is in the agenda. So.
And what, may I ask then, what is the projected borrowing likely to be next year and the year after and year after? What kind of money are we looking at?
It's all in the annual plan. As we've committed as a council, we won't be increasing rates more than what is in those in the long-term plan. And also, this, just to put this in perspective, this debt is going to be about $81 million less than is projected in the long-term plan. So,
sorry, if I just may, what is the projected committed or likely expense for next year, the year after, and the year after? We're borrowing 485 this year. How much is it next year and the year after?
Yeah.
And the year after? That's the question.
Well, it's if you look at those numbers, it's about a net of about 300 million.
Next year. Next year.
No, this year. Sorry, in 25-26. It's all in the long-term plan, but what we have committed to is each annual plan. We'll make those decisions, so we can be very accurate now around this next year. But if you look at the long-term plan, it will be less than what's in there for the next for next
So
year.
surely we have a figure of a projected expense and debt we're going to incur for the next
Well,
10
yeah,
years.
there
So,
is, but this council will look at, we've committed to look at it because it's not our annual plan, it's not our long-term plan.
Is that accessible to the public? Is it to the newspapers? Do
It's
they have
all
it on?
online, yep, it's all online, yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Tim or, oh, sorry, yeah.
Sorry, thanks for your... can you just identify yourself for the public, please?
Mark Kenyon Slade.
Mark, thank you.
Have we got Jan Jenga or Tim Maltby next? Jan's next, thank you.
Good morning, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, councillors, Mr Grenfell, staff, members of the public here in the room and online, and those who will watch later. It has not been an easy 24 hours, I don't mind admitting. To be told yesterday afternoon that I would not be allowed to speak this morning in public forum, and the dialogue that's ensued since. I don't want to dwell on it. I am now being given the opportunity to speak. Thank you. Council hasn't moved its position since I delivered my verbal submission back in mid-May. Your Worship, you announced at the conclusion of my verbal submission while I was sitting here that the amount that you had found to generate the savings to ratepayers for it to go, the average to be reduced from 12% down to 9.9%. There has been no movement since then. The verbal submissions ended and you then went into deliberations the next week, 4 days of deliberations. I attended to understand what was going on, how you were all going about things, and listened attentively. It didn't escape me that the OPEX total was never addressed in its entirety. There were piecemeal, it was all handed piecemeally where papers were presented to you and you would address them. But the actual dealing with overall OPEX, which is the operational spend for those who are not quite sure behind and in the public space what I'm actually talking about how that amount was made up and whether there could be movement on it. It was a real concern to me that this deliberation never happened in that process. And to be here sitting now and you are going to table the proposed plan and vote later on it, I would like to highlight to all of you, it's a real concern that that was not part of your deliberation to look at the OPEX, the total OPEX, and was that viable for our community. I'm never here speaking for me. We are a community out there. There are some sitting behind me. They've been out in front of the building. We've had toots of people going past, members of the public acknowledging us. Lots of people couldn't be here today to be out there from 8 o'clock onwards. They'll have another chance. Following our rally on the 18th of May, we had a lot of publicity. The media that we approached, and we approached them all to attend the rally, they didn't come. But the people, the community, they knew what to do. They generated footage. They put music to it. It came in from all directions to our team following the rally. That week, following that week, I had 2 10-minute interviews, one with RCR, with Paul Brennan, one with ZB. ZB put the clips in on the hour news slots throughout the day of excerpts from my interview. We didn't use any paid advertising. We networked. The group behind are all very connected, wide networks in and around our city. The people who are not here that wanted to be equally connected. It amazed me where people have stepped from and didn't have to be asked, didn't have to be managed. They've just got on and helped to try and support the campaign of being listened to as a community about the issues facing us with what you are proposing this morning. Nationally, the Taxpayers Union have recently coordinated a petition about rates caps, more than 25,000 signatures. Issues of rates are on the national stage. We are talking to a New Plymouth Ratepayers Association. We're talking about coordinated rally times. This is a national media issue about what councils are doing about rates. This affects people in our community. The weekly newsletters, sometimes it's a bit less frequently from the council, that I receive in my inbox and others will receive them. Sometimes it's one thing I can identify that's wastage. Sometimes it's up to 5 things that's wastage. I have a situation just in my local community in Bethlehem, and I was down there yesterday afternoon looking at the new playground in Beaumaris. And it's going to be opened at the beginning of July. And there's a free event.
Sum up, Jan?
Thank you.
Yep.
There's a free event happening there. It's a little amount, relatively, but these little amounts add up. This expenditure has to stop. We don't have the money to have a public paid opening event with food, as I understand, with free face painting. Please, please, zero-based budgeting, affordability, and stop the wastage. I will be accumulating my 40 million that I talked about and have got the community in behind in the coming weeks and months. And I will keep you up to date when I hit it. Savings are there. Please make them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Tim Maltby, welcome.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to speak very short, sharp and sweet. I'm a pensioner, 9.9%. I'm like a lot of Tauranga people. It's unaffordable. We can't afford these kind of increases. I know you've got a working group to try and reduce costs, as I understand. Is it still going or has it finished its work?
Still going, yeah.
What I'd like to ask or propose today is that you involve the community on that working group. There are a lot of very competent people in the community, particularly retired competent people. Martin's looking at me very curiously, but there are a lot of people that could help you save a lot of money without reducing service. There's a lot of experience out there. The community knows better than anyone what we want and where you could save money. So what about that as an idea, councillors? What about involving us and helping to save money? Is that a good idea? Bad idea? Good idea? What do you think, Mr Mayor?
Well, we're always open to options, and we'll always take communications. I can tell you, as one of the items that came on the agenda at the working group this morning was Murray Guy's feedback about a traffic management debacle outside his house. And, and once we know about it, we can certainly look into it and try to solve those things.
I mean, that's good because the community, but what about having community people on that working group? That's my suggestion or request. There are a lot of competent people who could help you make some good cost savings.
Yeah, we can certainly consider it.
That's good. Okay, well, thank you very much. Any other questions? No?
Yeah, Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, Tim, I'm interested in your thoughts as being involved with the Residents Ratepayers Association at Mount. The idea of community input into council, so not necessarily just through something like on a working group, but in a more holistic way in terms of getting community views shared in a setting where you can actually work through some issues. The models are numerous around the world, around the country. You know, you've got community boards where there are elections, you've got people who get appointed, you get council-led stakeholder groups. Do you have any thoughts in terms of how best to engage in a way that we don't just end up with a narrow selection of people, but we get quite a broad representation of community views in any engagement?
I think, particularly for local government, getting engagement is a huge problem. Most people are not interested until they get their rates bill, and then they suddenly complain. They're angry for a day or two, and then they ignore it for the rest of the year. Now, there are options. Community boards, for example, seem to work well if you've got enthusiastic local community people who get on board. What seems to happen, though, from my observation, is you have a period of a group of good, enthusiastic people who get stuff done, represent their community, they retire, and then it sort of goes into abeyance, and then at some later time it might pick up again. So the problem is, you know, creating public involvement and keeping it or maintaining it. And I don't, perhaps the structure, it's not a case of getting the right structure. I mean, it's the, if you've got good people, any structure will work. If you haven't got good people, no structure would work. I know Barry Scott is, he would like to see community boards, but you talk, I was talking to someone just last night and about the Western Bay community boards, and there's a lot of different, some people think they're a complete waste of time and they don't really work. I mean, if they did work as they were supposed to, they would be good, but it's the problem of getting good people to get involved. And I don't know, I don't think there's an easy, Barry had suggested community committees as a way forward. I do think the way that the councillors are running your community forums, or I don't know what you call them, you know, you're meeting with the community, I think that's a very good basis to start, to get feedback, and possibly, I don't know how you get more people to buy into that. I've been along and badgered Steve, for example, but the trouble is most people are too busy or they can't be bothered, not engaged. I don't know what your experience is, Glenn. I mean, you do community forums and there's not very many people turn up, are there?
Councillor Taylor, last question. Thank you.
Last question, Tim, just a quick one. Aren't we representatives of the community? Haven't we been elected to represent
Oh,
the
absolutely,
community?
absolutely. But look, from looking at the outside, there's some of us who could see lots of extra savings you could make. We're not trying to replace you as representatives. What we're saying is, look, if you really want to make savings, there are people in the community that could help you do that. You know, there's a lot of experienced, qualified people who could help you find those savings.
I definitely just support you know, anyone emailing. We get a number of emails every day that you know, once we become aware of things, we can certainly look into it. So if you do see opportunities, please send them through.
Full-time job, mate. Full-time job. Okay, well, thank you very much for hearing us out.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That ends our public forum. And I now ask, I'm not aware of any late reports, but I do note that attachment for item 11.3 development contributions policy was circulated yesterday afternoon, and we will discuss that later as part of 11.3. I'm unaware of any confidential business to be transferred into the open. Anyone have anything? No. And change of the order of business at this stage, we'll run through the agenda as planned. Confirmation of minutes. I take you to 7.1 minutes of a council meeting held on the 13th of May 2025. It's on page 9. Have we got any corrections to those minutes? Yeah, Councillor Taylor.
Sorry,
page 63.
I think that's the next, sorry, that's the next
So
one.
that's the next one,
Yep.
sorry.
Yep, no, that's all good.
Pause.
Okay, so is there no corrections or? Oh, okay, sorry, no, that's, all right, no, that's all good. Okay, it doesn't seem like there's any corrections, so therefore I call for a mover and seconder that the minutes of the council meeting of 13th of May 2025 be confirmed as a true and correct record. Councillor Morris, thank you. Councillor Schuler, thank you. Any discussion? No. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried, thank you. Next is 7.2 minutes of the council meeting held on 26th of May 2025, starting on page 42 of the agenda. Councillor Taylor.
On page 63, I'm not quite sure, but Kevin and myself, we voted for and against of the same motion, so need to get a bit of a correction there.
All right.
So I propose that I leave it for the staff to review the recording and adjust it accordingly.
Yeah, they will endeavour to do that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Councillor Morris.
Thank you. I was thinking as punishment, Councillor Taylor and Schuler have to watch the recording with the staff. But no, just in regard to 11.13, Resolution B, this is page 67, regarding Domain Road in Papamoa. There's reference to the 2028-2031 NLTP. I think that should be 2027 to 2030 NLTP.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
And I had a question, Mr Mayor, if I may, about Resolution C there, which is directing staff to work with the submitter that came in and discussed a cost-effective pathway along Domain Road in the interim. Just wondering whether that's made its way into an action schedule somewhere, team?
Through you, Your Worship. I imagine it's on a schedule, can follow up. I don't have any update as to whether or not we've made contact with that individual. We'll follow up.
Right, thank you for those comments. Is there any other corrections? Yeah, Councillor Crowther.
Under 11.2 on page 72, the discussion around, or proposed amendment around reducing the public art framework budget from 1.658 million, it says being 50% of the capital expenditure. I think that's 0.5% of the capital expenditure.
Right, is there any other corrections? All right. Obviously, assuming that those corrections are made as brought up, and thank you everyone for finding those corrections. On the assumption that they are made, that I now put the recommendation that the minutes of the council meeting held on 26th of May 2025 be confirmed as a true and correct subject. Oh, sorry, there's also the deletion of Resolution 1 on page 50. That was another correction, and obviously...
Resolution I.
Oh, sorry, I, yeah. And obviously those other corrections that have been brought up here. Yeah, some of that. We'll just get that resolution. Yeah, just put 0.
0.05.
No, it is 0.5, isn't it? I think it's 0.5, but just 0.5.
Yeah, 0.5, yeah, that put 0.
Yeah, 0.5, yeah. Okay. Therefore, I ask for a mover and seconder. Councillor Taylor will move. Got a seconder for those? Oh, sorry.
Which one are you deleting?
I.
Resolution about Argos Gym.
Yeah, okay. Have we got a seconder for that? Is it? Councillor Taylor moved. Seconder, Councillor Deputy Mayor. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thank you very much. Have we got any declarations of conflicts of interest for today's meeting? No? All right. If you become aware of a conflict, please bring it to my attention at the time. No deputations, presentations or petitions. And recommendations from other committees. We do have one, which is 10.1 on page 76. And this is the appointment of Chair and Deputy Chair for the Wastewater Management Review Committee, which has come to us from that committee. Sorry, just get to page 76. So this is Spencer Webster being appointed as the chairperson and Rick Kurak as the deputy chairperson of the Wastewater Management Review Committee. And I now ask if we have a mover and seconder to accept that. Councillor Taylor, thank you. Councillor Schuler will second that. Is there any discussion on this? No. Therefore, I ask all those in favour of this resolution. Those against? And do you want to abstain, Councillor Kurak?
No, because it simply says that it notes that I was appointed as a deputy, so I'm happy to vote for it.
All right, thank you. That is carried. Thank you very much. Fantastic. That then means we will go into 10 point, have we got the numbers wrong here? 11.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, we're so we're into 11.1 Annual Plan 2025-26 Adoption Report. This is on page 77. So I'll ask Paul Davidson if he'd like to talk to us about any of that. Happy to take the report as read, but if there's any things to point out, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, and good morning, Mayor, Councillors, staff and members of the public. This is the adoption of the annual report, annual plan for 2025-26 following the draft for public consultation, hearings and deliberations process. It's consistent with the decisions that you have made to date, with the exception of some changes that are suggested for around burial fees, which are corrections to what was in the draft document. So I'll really just take any questions from this point.
Have we got any questions on this from around the table? Councillor Crowther.
Thanks, Paul. Your question around the depreciation, I know you kindly provided some information yesterday. I guess I'm interested because of the information that went out in the public consultation around depreciation and where we've ended up. So we had $23 million of additional impost from a potential 7% increase in rates that went out to sort of talk about I think it was publicly talked about through media and commentary by elected members that the rates could have been, in theory, 20%. We know it would never have been 20, but in theory it could have been largely because of that depreciation figure. But we've now got a figure of 7 million increase. At the time when the consultation occurred, did we know the different numbers there? In other words, were we only telling part of that story? Because the narrative looks to me much more like we potentially could have had something like a 15% rates increase if we'd done nothing, because there were some ups and downs with the depreciation. We talked about the ups, the upward pressure, the 23 million, but we didn't seem to talk about the counterbalance. So, was that late information, or was that known at the time and we chose not to put it out?
No, there are two parts for the depreciation. One is the quantum of the amount, the other is the level of funding for depreciation. Now, one of the changes that was made through this annual plan was to fully fund depreciation with the exception of NZTA depreciation, which is for the reason being that the Transport Agency, in terms of renewals, funds 50% of that, so that is not fully funded, but the rest of depreciation is fully funded. So what you're seeing is that the depreciation expense does not go up by the same amount as the rating impost, and the reason being is because of the decision to fully fund depreciation. So there is a depreciation increase that's funded, and there is also a move to fully fund depreciation, except for the exception that I just mentioned. Hence why it is a larger number in terms of the rating impact of that change. So in the future, because we're now moved to that policy position, you will not see an increase due to the requirement to fully fund. You will see the movement because of depreciation, which often comes about through revaluations.
Yeah.
I guess I'm still unclear. Like the total additional amount on top of what was in the budget was 7 million, correct? That's what it. Oh, I think I haven't checked that. I'm just doing it from memory. It was 7 or 9. 9 it might have been, was it? But it wasn't 23 anyway. So I guess I'm still unsure why we would go out and talk about a potential increase on the 10.3% projected rates increase, being 7% additional net cost to the rates from that depreciation. And in the end, unless I'm misunderstanding this, it looks like it's not going to total that because you have those two factors you're talking about there.
I'm just looking at, so the annual plan is 125.9 million of depreciation. We had a forecast we had an LTP number of 104.7. So that's, I'm just trying to see whether the 7 million is the increase between the LTP and the 25 forecast, but the final annual plan number's the 125.9.
Sorry, yeah, it was 9. I misspoke. It was 9, not 7. Sorry. The 9 million is the difference between what was in the LTP and what is now in the annual plan. Yeah. So, isn't that reflecting the total depreciation?
Correct. It's reflecting the total depreciation, but the level of funding of depreciation of that 125.9 figure is higher than what we would have had in our long-term plan assumptions. So, which is why the rate number went up higher than what for the LTP, because the lower LTP, whilst the depreciation figure was lower in the LTP, the level of funding of that number was higher.
but it's a funny way of showing it, I think, in the consultation, because it sort of implies, yeah, and it implies a different set of what was going on, I think. But yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Right, any other questions? I think there was a correction that Councillor Taylor picked up, which is on 6. Oh yeah, there was actually a couple. So this is in 6, just above the table, key financial indicators. It should be, that should read not 2023, 2024, but 25, 26.
Yep. And then the headings on the burial, page 79.
Oh yeah, and then page 79, just to get the headings right. So that first column is burial of ashes. The second column is blank. These are the column headers for these. That first column of numbers is 2024, 2025 fee. The middle column of numbers is incorrect base fee used before inflation was applied. And then the final column on the right is 2025, 2026 fee consulted on and approved on the 26th of May. So when we look at that, we're going back to the first column of numbers. That would be the number that will be the actual charges as proposed by the resolution, which is that middle column, the third column from the left. So thank you for Councillor Taylor for bringing up those errors to our attention. That, sorry, is on page 79, paragraph 13. Is there any other questions for staff? Okay, if there's no more questions for staff, thank you very much for your time. Now we have a lot of resolutions there. This is obviously a process that we've been working on since about September last year with a number of changes. Just like to address that in the OPEX part of the budget that has included $30-odd million of savings in that line to get us down to the 9.9% that we're proposing later as part of the rating. That when we started this process with the changes we made, we're looking at over a 20% increase, and that has taken quite a significant chunk of the OPEX out to get down to the levels that we're looking at. And this has obviously been through hearings as well as submissions and deliberations to get to this point. So I'm happy to move that recommendation. Have I got a seconder for that? Councillor, or Deputy Mayor Schooler, thank you. I don't have anything more to add. We have, as I said, this has been quite a process to get here, and yeah, really appreciate everyone the hard work that they've done to get us here. I would like to say we do understand the tough financial position that a number of households find themselves in, and we're very cognizant of that. However, there is a lot to do in the city. There has been chronic underinvestment over a number of years, It's involved kicking the can down the road, and at some point you've got to pick the can up and actually deliver. And I think this strikes a good balance of keeping, the investment in our city for what we need for the future while making it as affordable as possible. And it is a really fine line of balancing. But when I look around the country to other councils, I would say from the amount of capital spending that we're proposing to do in the next 12 months, a rates rise of 9.9 compares very favourably with most of the other councils around the country. So I think that is a very positive step for the council. Deputy Mayor, would you like to?
I'll reserve my right, thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to acknowledge the people that came out to our consultation. This has been a very, very long process. I think we started back in November, December, with the initial discussion around it. We spent a good 6 or 7 weeks out there in the public meeting different sectors of the community. And I think it's been a great learning curve for us as new representatives of the community. It also, to me, signals what we need to think about in the next long-term plan. There's a lot of things that we couldn't change in this budget for this year, but going forward, I think it's given us a good steer of where we need to be looking and the things that we need to be dealing with as we go forward as a council. So a really great process, and especially thanks to the staff. There's been a lot of things going on in council over the last 3 or 4 months, and having this on top of it has been difficult, so acknowledge that.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to endorse some of the comments made by Councillor Taylor. This has been a very arduous process. We've listened to an awful lot of people, a lot of wide-ranging views from the public, both through the consultation progress, and I thank all those that submitted in person, much and gratefully appreciated, and all those who did it submitted online. An awful lot of reading for us to get through. So this is a very involved process, and again, for a first-time councillor, it was a lot to get through and process. Us as an organisation have done a lot of work, and again, I'd like to support what Councillor Taylor said around the effort of staff during a challenging time. We've put a fair amount of pressure on this organisation. They've delivered, and I'd like to thank them and commend them for that. Around council itself, we are a statute of legislation, and we've got a lot of it whirling around us at the moment. Lots of stuff coming at us. Central government, and in particular Chris Bishop, is promoting enabled growth, and that costs money, unfortunately. Our current maintenance program is very extensive, and it still doesn't meet the minimum requirement to keep our maintenance up to scratch. So we're a little bit behind in a few areas in that, and we've cut back a wee bit. But again, as Councillor Taylor said, we're a large organisation with huge amounts of commitment, with a wide-ranging amount of views that come at us, and we, on balance, I think we've got it close. Yes, as everyone has stated quite clearly, there is still more room improvements we can do around shaving money off individual project budgets, and we're continuing to do that. And I'll commit to continue to do that for the next 12 months to try and shave money out of every project budget that we can do, to try and save a few more dollars. But after our extensive annual plan process, I think we've landed about where we could have, given the time frame that we had to get through the process. And so I support the current recommendations.
Councillor Schuller. Oh, sorry, Martin. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Mayor. To a degree, reiterating and supporting what's been said. I suppose the one thing that has come out of this, and it has been a really interesting process, is, I suppose, us as a council, what is the scope of council? For me, if it's something that we do, and just to let people know, there has been a lot of decisions made through this process around what we can and can't do, what will and will not do this year, and some things have been pushed and some things have been removed. I suppose it brings to light the question is, us as a council, what we, and there is some of this discussion at a national level, what is the scope of local government? And for me, when something falls within our scope, it's essential, it's important, and we need to deliver for a whole range of components and parts and elements of our community. And I think we have got that right. I know there are people out there in the community that aren't happy with these decisions. There will be people I know that will be supporting us as well. I think as a group we have considered what's in front of us. But I think going forward there will be further discussion around this table around exactly what our scope is. It will be informed by what comes at us from a national level, and there will be future decisions to be made in the future. But we're very cognizant of that. But for me, we have a lot to do. It's a complex business. There's a lot of parts of our community, a lot of very differing views. But I think we've worked well to come up with a year and a plan that we can now work to and get on with, and I'm sure there'll be some good debate going forward about exactly what this table decides on and does and doesn't do. But very supportive, thank you.
Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, colleagues, for the way in which you have debated and deliberated as we've gone through this year's annual plan. And thank you to the members of our community who engaged with us at the many events that were held around the city, those that submitted, those that gave their feedback in other ways, and also want to acknowledge the people who came along this morning and gave their feedback again. And I appreciate that. I think that's a sign of a healthy, functioning democracy, and enjoyed engaging with some of our residents outside the front of the building this morning. In terms of the decisions that have made up the annual plan, I'm not sure that everybody would agree with all of them. We have gone through a range of decisions, and we have agreed and we have disagreed, but we have arrived at a place. And while I personally may disagree with some of the decisions that we made, at the end of the day, we have a duty to our residents and our community to pass a budget. We cannot be, like often happens when there is a split Congress in the United States and they don't end up funding a budget and you have shutdowns and that sort of thing. That would be of great detriment to our residents. So while we've agreed and disagreed and agreed to disagree and debated respectfully, we do have a duty, I feel, to pass a budget and to allow the city to continue functioning for the next 12 months. I would also make the observation as I quickly look in the rearview mirror whilst looking forward, there's been a significant part of this budget which we have not been able to influence in terms of the capital program, things that have been locked in and contracts which are ongoing. And that speaks to decisions of the previous governance of this organisation. I feel that we could have, as a group, perhaps communicated that clearer to our community. But at the end of the day, we have to take responsibility from 1st of July for this budget going forward. So thank you, colleagues. Thank you to members of the public who have engaged with us. Looking forward to further conversations going forward for the rest of this year as we work up the 2026-2027 budget, and that work begins now. We had a lengthy induction, but as I look around the table and I look at the capability and the intellect of my colleagues, we need to begin that now, because I think we can do better, even better, next time, next year. So let's begin that work right now.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Baker.
Ai, atamaria tātou. Ngamihi o te tauhau ki a tātou katoa. Ngamihi mana hoki. Happy New Year, everybody. Pretty significant milestone for us to get to this point as a newly elected council, and I do tautoko a lot of the kōrero that's been shared. So to not regurgitate, but to complement, hopefully, what has been said so far, this isn't the end. The working group is still going. The reshaping of the organisation's going to, that in itself presents more opportunities to drive better efficiencies and things. And as much as we want our city to grow, I've heard many of us share that if we can play our part to reduce the burden on our residents, then we're going to find and support the organisation to achieve that. So this is one small step, or a step, for us as a council to minimise the impact of life on our people without reducing the cost of, the level of service of the organisation. But there are still many more steps to take on this journey as a team, as an organisation, but more importantly as a community. So I'm excited for what this next year unfolds, and encourage us all to continue to pick up the challenge that's ahead of us. And as much as a 9.9 is great compared to what we were, I think we can continue to push the envelope in other ways, and continue to make Tauranga a great place for our kids to grow up in. So again, express my thanks to you all, to our community who showed up and showed out in your various different ways, and the organisation for being patient with us, I reckon, but more importantly to the table for being for compromising where you can, being steadfast and resolute in your principles where you couldn't, and still being able to walk away from this table and share in fellowship with one another. So, mihana kia tātou katoa.
Yes, we certainly have a big job ahead of us during our term. We hear from our community and those in hardship and finding it difficult to pay their rates, and I certainly get that message, and I'm proud of the people that are there advocating for those people, and good on you. It's a challenge, a lot of it wasn't our doing, and I know Mayor Drysdale referred to kicking the can down the road, but that can that was kicked down the road over the years was largely for discretionary projects in a period where rates were doubling every 10 years, and they will continue to do so, and even more. So that's why I think our job is even more critical to address some of the operating expenditure to help deliver those projects that are now in train, and taken into account the many in hardship. We hear a lot of findings from various surveys that identify the hardship out there. And so, rates aren't related to income, and that's the challenge. And in a way, it's very unfair. We hear from retirees, we hear from young families, we hear from many people in our community that are finding it increasingly difficult because the rate of growth of rates, which isn't comparable or relative to income, is growing a lot faster than people's income. We do know that. We have in our community survey added the question around rates affordability. We're all going to get the result of that, and it will continue to grow. But I too have confidence, as Councillor Morris said, that we have got a strong ability to change that and look for further savings. We've got a great working group to identify some of that, and I'm confident that looking at the 10-year plan figures in terms of the forecast rate increases, we won't reach those, and we'll make considerable inroads into reducing that. But who knows, it could be a disaster, and that will be unfortunate. But I think looking at the 10-year plan, and we will go through a process to reconsider the future direction in terms of rates and debt, and I'm confident with our ability, and we have got, from my many years around the council table, we've got a great team, and I'm really confident that if any council can do it, we can. So good on everybody for participating. We had a lot of engagement with the community, and I do wish the Jan and her group to keep going, because we need to hear from you and your fellow members. I know it's not a formal group, but perhaps you might need to formalise it a bit more, because it's a message that we do hear from the community and our discussions that we have, one-on-one with members of the community. But I think it is an opportunity to be heard in this chamber via your group. Because if, say, 200 turn up to a rally, we know that most people won't even think about going to a rally like that. So you are representing quite a big chunk of the population out there, which normally just, as someone raised, you know, are grumpy for a couple of days when they have to pay the increase in rates, but they sort of get over it and move on with life. It means to a lot of people that they're going to have to compromise with their spending elsewhere because it's a tax, they have to pay it. Yeah, we've got a lot of work to do, and that work will start tomorrow. So look forward to finding more and more savings and not having such a huge impost on our community.
Thank you, Councillor Currat. Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you firstly to staff, to Marty and finance team and all the other staff who've put in an awful lot of effort since we came on board, but particularly around this plan. I think there's been a lot of work has happened. I will comment on Councillor Morris's comparison to the US Congress, I think it was. I think it's a bit of a stretch to say that not voting for a council annual plan is a similar sort of context to actually depriving the federal government of the US some funding. I think all it would mean is that if a majority voted against it, would do some tweaking and would push it through in the same meeting, I would imagine. But given that we've been told the capital program is not up for discussion until, I think, the 22nd of July, I guess that's going to be an important meeting as well, as to, it's almost like the annual plan for 2026, part 2, which leaves me in a bit of an uncomfortable position, because it's whether I trust that we will make some changes that I think we need to do to have a viable plan, or whether we kick for touch on that, given that we decided not to do a long-term plan amendment. So that's, you know, I think there are a number of issues there, including one of the ones that I raised as an example, where we're signing off on a plan right now with the best part of a couple of $1 million for public art funding, which I think is an issue that, you know, just speaks, you know, when people are worried about smaller amounts of money, we've seen all this publicity recently about tens of thousands, but when we're talking millions of dollars of, to use Councillor Currat's word, discretionary spending, I think it just speaks to the fact that we have to make a conscious decision around that and not just rubber stamp it. And we haven't had a chance to discuss that as a council, which I was a bit sad about, because I think it's better to talk about it within the plan and to address these issues in real time rather than retrospectively after we've made these decisions. In December, I put forward an amendment for a 10% baseline number for this annual plan. It ended up being in a slightly, I think we were, myself especially, and the rest of us were a little bit clumsily, got to the point where we said there'd be a couple of options. The staff have delivered what we asked, which was a 10% option. I think we're just over 10% now if you include the IFF levy. So we've got basically what we asked the staff for. I'm not totally clear in terms of the working group whether we kind of have anything coming extra on top of that, which could give us a lower debt figure at the end of the year, but that time will tell that. I think we've had some headwinds, we've had some tailwinds, so I don't buy into the narrative that we were ever going to have a 20% rates increase. I don't think there was any reality that we would go over the 12.5%, including IFF, because that was something which was, I think, Mayor Drysdale and others have basically staked our reputations on that we don't want to do that. So the question was, how low could we get? I think the context for Tauranga is different. We can talk about benchmarking ourselves, but when you look at other cities around New Zealand, comparable cities, they have not faced what the ratepayers have faced here in Tauranga. The commercial industrial sector especially has been absolutely slammed with massive rates increases. The residential ratepayers have had years of significant rates increases. Double-digit rates increases have gone through under the commissioners each year. for our total rates, and you know, that provides a different context. And when you look at somewhere like Auckland, which has got, if you factor in waters, they have about a 6.2% increase this year. That's after the impact, massive spend up on cyclone impacts that they've had, and they've had some other headwinds. So I think we've come out of it, you know, pretty well compared to some other councils when you look at what they're dealing with, when you look at what Wellington is dealing with in terms of its infrastructure. So a lot of this has been, we have made choices, and in the last year we've made choices to lock in some significant rates increases for years to come. And that to me is a big challenge that we've got ahead of us, because we've got another double-digit rates increase this year. We've got baked in costs for a lot of projects, and we've got a budget line which would require us to do about a 13.5% rates increase now to get to that budget line for next year. Now, I don't think we'll be doing that. We won't be going higher than the stated rates increase, but in my view, we have to go completely in the opposite direction. We have to go down to where the people are. So the public of Tauranga, wherever they're at, they're not at the point of wanting double-digit rates increases. I'm confident of that. And we have framed up, like we being, I guess, the council over a number of years, have framed up a plan which we are now saying to the public, you need to fund this plan. This is our plan, you need to fund it. I think we need to turn that around and say, we need to figure out what the public can afford and come up with a plan that meets the requirements of the public. We are here to serve the public. We're not here to deliver a plan. Finding out exactly where the balance is, of course, is challenging, but I don't think we've got it all right at the moment. And I think you can see that by looking at our survey results, apart from anything else. I think it's important to have a clear, transparent narrative around this, to be upfront with all the numbers, and I think we need to anchor in that we get close to that CPI increase next year. We can't be talking about double digits. We can't be talking about, you know, 9%, 8%. We have to get lower. If we don't, then when you look at what's going to come out, if there's a, you know, the prospective charges for waters that are being talked about, we're just going to have massive unaffordability in the city. It is the most indebted city in New Zealand per person. So we have at the moment about $1.5 billion of debt that ratepayers have. So we've got the official debt and we've got the IFF debt. That is significantly worse than Hamilton. And yet, if you look in the media yesterday what Hamilton councillors were talking about, you'd think they were, you know, the worst off. But we are significantly worse off than Hamilton. We are way worse off than Christchurch. But their councillors are talking like they've got a debt crisis still. So I think I can support this plan today on the grounds that we have to actually get something over the line, but we have to do it differently next time. We have to get bigger savings than we got this year, and we have to do that through looking at the CapEx program up front. We've avoided that this year completely. We need to do that on the 22nd. We need to reorganise that capital program, and we need to make it that we lock in some affordability, and that's based on looking at our community and the number of low-income people out there paying rent that are just going to be stretched to the limit, and having high rates increases is making that worse. So we'll support this to get it over the line, but I'm going to be looking for all of you to double down on what we did this year.
Thank you, Mayor. First and foremost, thank you as a person that came to the table 6 weeks ago and dived straight in the deep end of annual plan. To my colleagues that have brought me up to speed as quickly as possible, to the staff, the members of the public, thank you. From what I've seen and gathered, there's been a lot of hard work to get there. We're not there yet, but we are heading in in the right direction, I think. So I want to endorse most of the comments that have come about. And I guess as we go forward, the words of balance are ringing in my head, and choice, we're going to have to make some choices. And some of those are going to have to be courageous choices about what we choose to do or not do. If I think around the economic climate that we're in, the word cost of living is on our minds. The constituents that I represent, the demographics will tell us that they are on the lower income, that they are much younger, and most of them actually don't have the ability to own a home. So then when they do get the ability to own a home and we start putting these significant rises, and probably what Councillor Crowther was saying, they're probably renting anyway, but it's going to get passed on to them. So we need to make some choices to make sure that, as I said, the big challenge that I see is getting some of the Māori land unlocked and houses on it. And so that will be a priority as we go forward. So yeah, just reiterating that there's much more to do, but I am heartened by the direction of travel we are going. And again, thank you to everybody for your patience as I picked it up and got us up to speed as quickly as possible. Tēnā tātou.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I appreciate the comments made by my colleagues. I think you've summed up well the process we've been through, and I think without a doubt, I believe we have learnt, but there's still lots of learnings to have. A couple of things we absolutely need to deliver value for money. I think I'm hearing from many of the community saying, keep up the progress, keep up. We want to see new things in Tauranga. I think the opening of this building and the couple of hundred people we had and the 150 we had on the tours, certainly the people I spoke to who were not those who regularly come to our meetings, they were, I think, the people of Tauranga, but interested in this building, interested in the council coming together and working from one building, there was a real civic pride there. There was a real feeling that, yes, we are doing things in the city and they want those things to be happening in the city. Where I'm talking to people, they do want new playgrounds. Whether we need to open them or not, I'm not sure, but they do want new playgrounds, they want new sports fields, they want more aquatic facilities. They want to come and be proud of the city that they live, learn, work and play in. But we need to understand how to get more value for the significant expenditure we make, 485 capital, 591 operating costs. I would like to think, I think it has been collaborative from with staff, with the community and with us, and we need to continue that so we continue getting the messages in, the feedback in from all of those people. I hope we have empowered Marty to empower his staff to also look at how they can be better in their job, how they can take costs out, how they can make processes better. We want to empower improvement, empower change, empower acceptance that things don't have to go the same way, but they can be done differently. I want to find that we don't get as much coming to our table unless we actually do need to make a decision on it, so we can focus on some really important things that we as a team of 10 believe are the things that we really need to be thinking about. So we're definitely not there yet. I am supportive of the annual plan for 25-26. I am confident that we can continue to look at both the CapEx and the operating costs and the revenue, of course. And I am confident in the team we've got, the collaborative team we've got, which is the team of 10, the staff that support us really strongly, and the community out there that is feeding back into us. So I think we are, this is a good step we've made. I think we're absolutely needing to be better, do better, but really deliver for value for the people of Tauranga and make sure that we do that, bringing the team on board, with which Māori will lead, and with us, as Councillor Taylor said, representing the people that are in Tauranga and that we all do care about.
Thank you for everyone's comments. Just to sum up, I guess, this is a budget that we're looking to approve. That does not mean we need to spend it, and this council has very much said that we want value for money. We want to find every saving that we can, and I think there's big opportunities to continue to save money. As we've already mentioned earlier, the working group's continuing as we look for every avenue where we can look for savings. I think there's a big opportunity in the capital program. Sorry, just to correct you, Deputy Mayor, it's 503 million, not 485 million. Yeah, it's a big capital program, one of the biggest the city's ever delivered. And from what I've seen so far in the time, there's a lot of opportunity if we're prepared to look at our processes and do things differently to deliver the same assets for significantly less money. And we'd love to see any feedback as to how we can deliver these projects for better value for money and deliver more for less is very much where we want to go. So, as I say, this is very much the start. This is setting a budget. Now the real hard work starts as we try to deliver under that budget and deliver as much as is in the budget for less than what we have budget. So that is the challenge, I guess, going forward. And I think there's a huge opportunity for the city to continue to improve it while investing, smartly and wisely and allowing us to get that value for money for all our people. So, thank you. Everyone's had their say. So, I'd now like to put the recommendations to the council, and I ask all those in favour. Those against. That is carried. Thank you very much. So the annual plan obviously leads into rates, and now that is what we're going to discuss at 11.2, the rates resolution 2025-2026. This is also on page 82 of the agenda. Again, a lot of this comes out of the decisions we make in the annual plan, and those numbers feed directly into this report. But happy to hand over to Jim if there's any pertinent bits of information that you'd like to point out. Or Paul.
Thank you. Really probably one of the longest resolutions you'll pass at 7 pages, but you're absolutely correct. It reflects the annual plan that you have just adopted. It is reflected in the funding impact statements within those documents. And unless Jim's got anything to add, we'll just take questions.
No, nothing to add. If you've got any questions, happy to answer them.
Right, has anyone got any questions? As we said, this is a very large resolution. Councillor Crowther.
I know it's not directly related, but can you clarify, just for the record, what the overall increase in the IFF is per, as a percentage? So we've got 9.9% overall rates increase, and then what it works out overall for the IFF levy.
So the levy in the current year, and remembering that when you compare back to the LTP, it had the Te Manamataki Altapapa levy in there, which obviously is excluded. So we're just talking the Transport System Plan levy. For this year, that will be approximately 12.6% in terms of that increase. And the reason for that increase is that when the IFF levy is forecast and calculated, it's based on an increase in a forecast capital growth, and when you have a revaluation year, if your capital growth that you forecast is different to what actually happens through that, you can get some changes in terms of the individual level for that. So in this situation where we had a lower capital valuation than what was forecast through the levy, the actual amount goes up. Bearing in mind that it's $10 per annum that we're talking in terms of that number.
Just to be clear, can we have it just in terms of a percent of the total overall increase for combined rates and IFF levy?
I did a quick calculation. Jim can just confirm it. I had it at 0.3%, but
0.3%.
I'll just get Jim to just to quickly confirm it. But I think I did a quick calculation this morning at 0.3, but I'll let the expert.
Councillor Taylor, do you want to ask a question in case, give Jim a bit of time? Okay, all right. Councillor Morris.
Thank you. Mayor, question around proposed resolution 6, the urban growth rates, of which there are 3: full benefit, wide benefit, and then there's the other one across the whole city. Looking at my one big beautiful rates bill, to coin a phrase, I've got something in my rates bill which is called urban growth wide benefit, which is not particularly informative in my view. If we were to name that Te Tumu growth wide benefit, and then whatever the 3 categories are, full benefit or mild benefit, would that accurately describe what that targeted rate is for, or is it beyond Te Tumu? Because I'm thinking we've got I'll speak to it in the debate, we've got a beautiful discussion coming up as part of the next long-term plan about the future of that rate, and if it was named appropriately, it would help people know what it is. So if it were named Te Tumu growth targeted rate or something like that, would that accurately describe what that is, or is it beyond Te Tumu?
No, it's charged beyond the area in a wider area, but it is based effectively on that. What I would say is that any change that hasn't gone out in terms of a public document at this point in time to change in a rate resolution, I'd be reluctant, without just double checking from a legal perspective, that it wouldn't create any risk. I know we're looking at it again next year. That would certainly be a technically safer way to actually address it. I appreciate the point, but changing a rate description in the resolution without any commentary into the public before, I certainly wouldn't be comfortable with that without legal advice.
Subject to that advice, and if that advice was favourable that we could clarify what that rate is, would you then, given through the Chief Executive's ability to make minor alterations to the plan, would we be able to change that?
Through the Chair, Councillor Morris, I think we have to wait until next year now. The annual plan has been adopted, and then the annual plan is the funding impact statement, and it has those descriptions. The rates resolution is the third of the legal documents that go out for rates, the second one being the funding impact statement, then the resolution, followed by the assessment. All of them have to say the same thing under the, so it would have to be in the next year's annual plan. Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Taylor. 0.19%, was it? Yeah. 0.2, yeah.
So my point's probably a philosophical question for you, Jim. I look at the numbers in here, and a couple of them are 8 decimal points. So you've obviously done some background work to get those accurate numbers. If for some reason we find in a couple of months' time that there's a slight incorrection there, how do we handle a rectification of that?
Through the Chair again, that's a good question. With the 8 decimal points are relating to the GST, the 0.15, so it's an accounting number of decimal places. But the answer is, once the rates are set today in the resolution, that is applied to every rating units, regardless of whether we get some additional ones between when we were prudently calculating it and the end of June. At the moment, we've got some more that will come in, some more revenue, but we've also got some more remissions that are also coming in. And that will either create a deficit like it did last year, which is the first one that I've ever seen, or a surplus, which is more likely, which is a normal year. It's a slight surplus each year. So the rate doesn't, you can't change the rate during the year. Once it's set, it's set.
Sorry, can I just expand on that a little bit? So not necessarily those numbers, I just picked those because they're really, really long. But if we look at the other stuff in there, if we found that there was something that was incorrect, and I'm not casting dispersions on how you've worked it out, but if something came up later and we said, oh, that number we had in that resolution needed to be fixed, how do we go about that? It's part of my learning on the process.
Yeah, so it is a very strict legal process. There's been numerous examples across the country where councils have incorrectly passed rate resolution. It requires you to reset the rates and potentially has significant legal implications in terms of what you've charged to date. So it's a critical report to get absolutely right at this point in time with no mistakes in it. As I said, there has been examples where even the ordering of passing the resolutions, for example, if you passed the rates report prior to the previous report, that would be an invalid rate setting process. So it has quite a strict process, and touching every piece of wood I can, it's perfectly correct. So yeah.
Are you confident in your numbers, Jim?
Yes, so it balances out. I've actually run it in the system so that it balances out with the budget to $0. So that's how I get this number. It's a prudent number. It's at the time that the district valuation rule was used to calculate them. I create a zero balance at that time.
Excellent. Thank you. Gives us a lot of confidence. Thank you. Councillor Rolleston. Oh.
I might also say something now. As a former rates manager, I never got it wrong either, Jim.
Right, have we got any further questions for staff? Yeah. All right, thank you very much. I note that there's a very large resolution, so I won't be reading it out, no, in the thoughts of efficiency. We will put it up, but you'll probably have to follow it on your screens. It starts at page 82 of the agenda. It goes and goes. So have we got a mover and seconder for this? Okay. You want to move, or you?
I'm happy to move with the new G.
What page? No, he just said you can't change it.
No, it's a new G. It's not related to the rating resolution.
Okay.
Yep.
And
the new G would read, in the draft 2026-27 annual plan, rename the urban growth rate to Tumu urban growth rate. No, this is in the draft next year. Yeah, yeah.
Which page are we on?
We're on page, Steve, at the moment.
It's page 88. It's a new resolution on page. Yeah. It's up on the screen there. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Councillor Morris, can you just...
That was on purpose.
Do you don't want me to speak? I mean, probably not something that would have a massive objection to, but is it something that's materially significant? Is it something that we could deal with later, or does it have to be here now, or is it just a sideshow?
Paul.
Sorry, just through the chair, if I could just suggest, and my only concern is that a targeted rate that is charged to other areas with a name of a of a particular suburb, just to confirm that. So if the mover will allow that to be consider renaming the rate, just to ensure that we're legally correct in that process. Yeah.
In the urban growth plan, I think.
Yeah,
well, I think we
it's
just
urban
do we
growth
just
rate.
say renaming the urban growth plan, and then we.
It's rate. Isn't it urban growth rate?
Urban growth rate.
Rate. No, look, Mr. Mayor, I've got a lot of confidence in our minute takers and our staff. I have less confidence in my memory, so I think if we pass this resolution, I know that it'll come up again.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you said targeted rate, do you need to say to the Te Timu urban growth plan? Because what we're saying is we'll consider in the draft renaming the urban growth plan.
Yes, I'm happy with that, Mr. Mayor. I think we just remove the word plan because it's a rate. So urban growth plan should be just urban growth.
Do we take out? I'm saying, do we take out to the Te Timu?
I'm happy with that. Yeah, I'm fine with that. If
taking out the to the
I'm comfortable.
because we're going to consider it anyway.
That's
so.
right. Yeah.
Urban growth rate. Yeah. Perfect. Councillor Schuler is happy to. Schuler is happy to. Okay. Councillor Kurak will second. So this is the whole resolution. So this is Councillor Morris. Councillor Kurak is happy to second the whole resolution with that. Yeah. Thank you. Is there any discussion, Councillor Morris? Councillor Kurak? Any further discussion?
I just personally think that G's a bit irrelevant for the scale of what we're discussing above, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, let's vote.
Councillor Roseboom.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, this is another one of these lengthy processes that we've been through over the last couple of months, and disappointed that our public have left, but there is definitely a shortfall between the ambition of Tauranga and the growth ambitions that a large proportion of our community have versus paying for that growth rate and how we go about paying for it. And it's a well-established model that the current means of funding growth in our growth cities isn't working, and we need to work with central government to find a solution to that, and we need to continue, and over the next 12 months I hope that all my colleagues around this table work diligently with central government to come up with a solution to better fund our growth. We are designated as a growth city, so we have different issues to those cities or towns that aren't growing, and I think we need to make it quite clear to our Wellington counterparts that we need a different funding mechanism to help pay for our growth, and I'm going to continue to bang doors in Wellington to try and get some sort of funding sharing mechanism, whether it be GST or some other, to help fund the growth portion, to take the burden off those in this city that are on a fixed income that our current central government will not see, to help them through these current tougher economic times. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If there's no further discussion, then I'll put the resolution to the council. I ask all those in favour. Those against? That is carried. Thank you. The next report we're going to consider is 11.3, Development Contributions Policy 2025-26 Adoption Report. This is page 90 of the agenda.
This is a consequential flow-on of the decisions you've made already today in terms of the adoption of the annual plan and the capital program that goes with that. So where those capital projects are to be funded by growth, that flows into the development contribution policy and into the charges. So that's effectively what this is. I know there were a couple of questions from elected members around two charges. We did distribute the glossy version, if you like, last night, and there was a question around two areas being Ohauiti and one other about why the numbers had changed, Tauranga West. It was a conversation with the staff that actually implement the policy. So those charges have got two components, those that relate to directly those urban growth areas, plus they pay a share of, they pay the Southern Pipeline, which other than that sits in the infill charge. So rather than people having to look in two places and add the two numbers up together, we've just done it for them so that if someone is in either of those growth areas, they look at the one line and they know the total that they need to pay for the development contribution, so which is the urban growth area plus the Southern Pipeline element of the wastewater charge.
Right. Councillor Taylor.
Sorry, that was my question, so just extending on that. So wouldn't that affect other areas, other DCs in that list?
So both those charges are in two of our three new catchments. So when we've spoken to those landowners, which are a pretty small number of landowners across Upper Ohauiti and Tauranga West, it's always been very clear to them that they would need to pay for the Southern Pipeline on a per lot charge. And the land area is shown within the Tauranga infill mapping within the DC policy. So there's not many, there basically isn't anybody else out there that we haven't spoken to and made that clear because they're quite consolidated land holdings. But there are other catchments that pay the Southern Pipeline charge as well, for example, Te Papa. And at the moment in the policy, that's shown separately, Te Papa and the Tauranga infill charge, and showing it separately is what's kicked up the issues with our DC assessor team saying this is confusing people, we should present it as one.
Right, have we got any other questions around development contributions? Yeah.
I'm asking too many questions again, but point C in our recommendation, we talk about an increase from the 15% that we consulted on going to 17.2, and then somewhere else it talks about the Otomoto pool causing that increase. Is that correct? And if so, can you maybe just give us a quick rundown on that?
Yeah, the Otomoto pool is like a very small part of that 17.2. When we consulted on like a 15% increase, and that didn't reflect your recent decision making around keeping the Otomoto pool open. A good part of the body of this report is actually pulled from the memo that we circulated about a month ago or so following that decision making through deliberations. So in substance, the decision to keep Otomoto pool open has resulted in a greater portion of the impact facility being assumed to be to provide for growth in the future. And so with an increased share, we end up with a higher DC funded aggregate amount, and that amount being funded over a greater number of households than previously assumed, but also a longer repayment period because we collect the DCs over longer, and so it results in a higher cost of capital. So all of those sort of components add up towards the increase from the draft 15% increase to the total 17.2. There's a bit of detail in there, sorry.
Councillor Schooler.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Can you both are not speaking up very loudly today? I had the same question, and we've been talking about 0.5% increases being quite significant, and this is suddenly going from 15 to 17. So, if Otomoto pool wasn't a big part of that, can you just give me a bit more on that extra 2%? Because we do want to densify, we do want to enable. I know we need growth to pay for growth, but they're quite big increases that we're going. 15 was quite high, and now we're going to 17. So can I just get a bit more of that explanation, please?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, let me try the mic again, So normally we would say that a 5% increase would be sort of a materiality threshold that we would come to you and very clearly call it out in the report and stuff, rather than a 0.5%. 0.5 would be pretty minor normally, and sort of could be quite easily caused by, I don't know, pushing a project back a year or two or something like that. And
No, apologies, I was saying in our rates discussion we've just
sorry.
had, then we're going down to the points, but sorry, I
I hadn't heard that. Yeah. So that 2% increase, I don't have a breakdown with me now of what's causing exactly that, but it is, I added an estimate, over a percentage point of that would have been caused by that Otomotai decision. And the balance has just come through with decision making through the annual plan deliberations around budgets being confirmed, pushed up a bit, pushed down a bit, the timing of things maybe being changed a little bit, and it's that sort of cost to capital impact as the primary driver. So it's not about the fundamentals of the CapEx so much as the timing of delivery and the impact of inflation.
And so do we know what the response from the development community is in terms of a 17% increase?
I spoke to the development sector group about 2 or 3 weeks ago, which represents a large number of landowners, industry experts and sort of planning surveyors, and then large house builders. There wasn't any substantive change from their submissions, which is that 15% is high. I don't think 17% is then sort of materially different from their perspective. It falls within the same ballpark. And I think that's true from a legal sense as well. If we think about, are we delivering on something materially the same as what we consulted on, this would be within that threshold as well.
Is there any other further questions on development contributions? If there's no further questions, I'll ask if we just put the resolution up, please. We've got a mover and seconder of this recommendation. Okay, thank you, Councillor Roseboom. I'm happy to second that. Councillor Roseboom, would you like to talk to it?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. No, this is another area of which I've had quite a bit of feedback from the community around both business and commercial residential developers around paying for stuff and the timing, and this is where I'm hoping we're going to get a bit of relief from the new Resource Management Act. We can speed up the delivery of actual housing, so the time between when we actually charge the DC to when the house is actually built is a lot shorter, and it would help those gaps that clearly, in my short time in this position, has been told to us on numerous occasions, there's a distinct gap between the cost of putting the pipes and roads into a subdivision versus when we get paid for it, and all the interest that covers all that debt in the intervening time. And everyone I've spoken to or spoken to me about this understands the process very well. It's just that cost then gets added to the cost of the new building or the new development, and we as the general Joe public have to pay for it either through our new housing loan or through our paying for products that are developed or produced in that industrial development. So this is definitely something else that we could do better, clearly, but this is where we've landed this year, and I'm hoping over the next 12 months we work to do this better for the next annual plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Just picking up on a point I was making about the Adamoto pool, I think unintended consequences perhaps. I didn't understand the connection that would have had to this particular increase. So yeah, I've learned a lesson there, and probably we'll ask a few more questions on that next year.
Right, Councillor Crowther.
This highlights a bit of an issue, I think, for council to address in the next few months, and as we get clear on the developer levies detail, hopefully we can tighten up on how we want to approach funding growth in the city. I tend to go along with the significant number of people in our community who have, over the years, said that the citywide DCs, while it has an advantage for council, it also has some significant disadvantages, and hopefully we will end up with a funding regime that's actually optimal. I'm not confident that'll be the case. That'll be out of our hands, unfortunately, like a lot of things. But when I look at $40,000 for someone who's, if I pick up on Councillor Rollston's point of a person who's been paying rent, struggling to do that for, 10, 15 years, try to get a small house somewhere, typical 3-bedroom house, nothing too fancy, and then wham, another 40 grand on top of it. It doesn't seem like a good way to do it, a good way to do growth. It seems far better based on the evidence that has been collated in Auckland and overseas that you have other funding models where you actually get some form of value capture or some form of downward pressure in terms of the initial price paid for the land. So rather than have a bunch of people go away having their land purchased at a nice tidy sum, big capital gain, not taxed, and then some poor mug comes along and has to spend 40 grand to build the house, I think it's much better to look at a more holistic approach to this. We can't do that. We were told quite clearly we couldn't do that this year. We didn't have time to do that when I asked for that option. So it is with great reluctance, I guess, that I support this. But I think, again, similar to the annual plan resolution, I only do so on the grounds that I think we have to do an awful lot better next time, and we can't keep this upward trend of getting citywide DCs just massively increasing. And one of the first steps on that is what we do with Memorial Aquatic Centre. That's a chunk of this. We've got Waiari and things baked in, but we have a decision to make on Memorial, and we have to start thinking, how much can we, the people of Tauranga, afford to put in a budget, because it not only affects the rates for years to come, but it also affects the citywide DC's charge, and we have to really be cognizant of that when we decide that pool.
Councillor Kura.
I also reluctantly support it. What the development community really like to see is their certainty. So when they're making the investments, purchasing the land, they want to be fairly confident that some of these taxes don't go up too quickly, because at the end of the day, the buyer of the new home has got a certain ability to pay for a product. So this ultimately will come off the profit of the developers, who are probably finding times tough already, so the timing couldn't be much worse. So when we look at, the timing of the development contribution, and this is where Councillor Crowther is alluding to, it'd certainly be better for the development community to know what the number is, so when they make their land purchase, they can factor it in. So this is coming at a time where, mainly the land purchases have been made. Developers are sitting on the land, and for a home and section package, this is another $5,000 that ultimately will have to come off their bottom line, because the community's ability to pay the $5 grand isn't there. The interest rates have come down a little bit, but wages aren't climbing that much for a person to be able to afford to borrow the extra amount and fund it. So all in all, it's about timing. It's, we've got a perfect storm happening here, where, rates and development contributions, etc., all going up, but people's ability to pay isn't. So I will support it. It helps in terms of council funding, but we need to perhaps wish for, as Councillor Crowther said, the new legislation to provide more certainty to the development community, and I'm sure they're advocating for their interests with the new proposals through government and the bills that are they before the government? I'm not sure what's happening with that, but to progress it to something that would be a more fair application in terms of the DCs on the development community and ultimately the purchaser of the home and section packages.
Councillor Schooler.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to make a comment that I think when we get a recommendation that goes from 15 to 17% and there's no real explanation because it's only a 2% increase over 15, to me is sort of, that's the stuff we have to stop happening for papers coming to this table. And Marty, I just ask you to note that, please, because 2% on top of a 15% is actually important. And we do want to densify, we do have to have housing, more housing, and a 3-bedroom house, which is quoted as where we're seeing people wanting to start. So I'm just saying, please, CEO, take this as we will. Next time, I'm reluctantly going to support, but next time I'll be saying we do need to know, 17% increase is a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Chair. Yes, points taken, and at the very least we need to provide the detailed information on what makes up that change.
Thank you. Yeah, I think obviously this council wants growth to pay for growth, and this is part of it. This is where the rubber hits the road. I understand a number of the discussions around this table, but once again, the elephant in the room is GST on development contributions would take this back to where we started, and I think that is something that we've got to have these discussions, because the government can continue to tell us that we need to do better, but there's plenty of opportunities. I've become aware of building consents, one in particular, where 25% of a building consent cost is GST and MB charges. So there's a huge opportunity here from central government, if they're serious about helping growth and helping pay for growth, that there is big levers that they could pull, which would considerably change the landscape of this. And this is us covering our costs. This is not us profiting from growth. And as we've discussed, growth has cost the city a huge amount of money over the past few years because of some of the legislation and the regulatory settings that we can't collect 100% of growth funding. So, I think that's an opportunity to work alongside central government in the future and point out some of these things, and that could be a huge help to helping to pay for growth. All right. That was who seconded? Yeah, sorry. Oh, sorry, I did. Yeah. Councillor Roseboom, do you want to? Okay. Therefore, I'll put the resolution to the council. Ask all those in favour. Those against. That is carried. Thank you very much. That now ends our public session, and we have one item to look at in publicly excluded. So I ask for a mover and seconder to go into publicly excluded. Councillor Schooler, Councillor Roseboom, thank you. All those in favour? Those against? We are now in publicly